Cloud. We are going to get started. All right. Howdy, my name is Lei. I am the Community Volunteer Ambassador for the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. I am faceless today, but here we are with our guest speaker from Channel Islands National Park, Bethany. So I'm going to start off the Zoom session by going over our general consent statement. So as a visible disclosure, we'd like to inform any participants that any and all of the Zoom series is and will be recorded. The purpose of this is to provide the Zoom series to those who participated or missed out on the session. It is also provided the information for participants to refer back to. In addition to the visible disclosure, this statement will be orally stated at the beginning of each Zoom series like I am right now. And I'm going to stop sharing and head it off to Bethany.
All right. Thank you, Lei. Thank you, Sarah, Tori, Rosa, everyone from Santa Monica for having me today. Before we start, Lei, is everyone muted?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Bethany. I am a park guide at Channel Islands National Park. And today, I hope you are all safe and healthy. And this program today will give you a brief overview of the parks. We'll briefly visit each island, and then I'll talk about the different recreational activities you can do out in the park. And if you'd like to explore further, you can visit our website. We have a virtual visit page where you can look at our live webcams. We have one underwater, we have eagle cams, and you could also watch our live dive recordings from previous live dives where we had a ranger underwater talking about the kelp forest. There are opportunities for children and educational opportunities on our virtual visit page as well. So head over there to learn more about the park. And if you haven't been to the Channel Islands, I hope that this program entices you to get out there and make a plan, because it kind of does take a plan to get out to the Channel Islands. A little bit about me. I've been with the Park Service for over 4 years now. I started as an intern with Santa Monica Mountains in their education division. And that was an amazing experience that led me to my first job at Grant Corps Ranch National Historic Site. And that's a picture in the top right there of that site. It's in Southwest Montana. And that's me at the chuck wagon talking about the ranching history with some visitors there while they're enjoying some cowboy coffee around the campfire. And then on the bottom right there, you'll see a picture of me at Santa Monica Mountains, and I worked 2 seasons for them in the education division, and we provide field trips for 4th grade students there. And then the pictures on the left are pictures from Santa Cruz Island. I spent 3 seasons with Channel Islands, 2 of them out on Santa Cruz Island as the park guide before becoming a permanent employee with them in January of this year. So the time I spent out on Santa Cruz really allowed me to understand why the islands have pulled people to them for over 13,000 years. There really is something special about this place, and so I hope that you guys can get out there and find your connection to these islands at some point soon. All right. So Channel Islands National Park was created on March 5th of 1980, and it was created to protect the nationally significant resources of the islands. That includes the natural, scenic, wildlife, marine, ecological, archaeological, cultural, and scientific values of these islands. 8 islands make up the Channel Islands chain, but only 5 of them are within the park boundaries. Santa Barbara Island, which is the furthest south there, and Anacapa Island were created as a national monument in 1938. And it wasn't until 1980 that the other 3 islands, Santa Cruz Island, Santa Rosa Island, and San Miguel Island, were also added when they became a national park. So the national park is those 5 islands themselves, but also the mile of water around each island. And so you'll see that border around each island. Now that darker blue line that's a little bit further out from each of the islands, that's 6 nautical miles out from the islands, that is a national marine sanctuary that was also created in May of 1980. We are headquartered in Ventura, California. You can visit our visitor center there in Ventura Harbor. We have a native plant garden to explore. You can ascend the tower and view the exhibits there and try to see the islands. If it's a clear enough day, you can see the islands from the tower. Our visitor center itself, you can watch the park film, and we have exhibits on the pygmy mammoth and the natural and cultural resources of the islands. And we also have a marine life exhibit where we have live sea animals in there. Currently, that is all under construction. So once that's reopened, that's when our visitor center will reopen. It is closed right now because of the current situation. So keep an eye on our website for when our visitor center will reopen. Okay, now we're going to head out to the islands. 38 miles offshore, and the southernmost island is Santa Barbara Island. This island may not look like much from afar, but if you inspect it a little closer, you're going to find native wildflowers, pinnipeds like seals, sea lions, and you're going to find even special animals like the island night lizard that only lives on Santa Barbara Island in the park, and then 2 of the other islands that are not within the park. And the island night lizard actually doesn't come out at night, and it's actually out during the day, so it's kind of a deceiving name.
Bethany?
Yes.
Where was that picture taken of Santa Barbara? I've never seen it that close. Is that Anacapa?
You know, I'm not sure.
I'm thinking.
The one with the flowers, that it would have been on Santa Barbara, but I'm not sure where on Santa Barbara that was taken.
Oh, I thought, no, there was a picture of Santa Barbara Island, just the last slide you showed.
That one there? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where was that taken?
Oh, you know, I'm not certain you can where on the island. I'm not certain where it was taken, but I can look into that.
No, that's okay. I just thought, I've never seen Santa Barbara that close, so I thought maybe, or is this Santa Barbara Island?
It's on Santa Barbara Island.
Oh, got it.
So that's an offshore rock that you're looking at.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries. All right. So as you can see, snorkeling and diving is a great opportunity out around Santa Barbara Island. It had crystal clear waters. You can see some of the pinnipeds on the rocks there. However, Santa Barbara Island does not have any boats going out there currently because the pier was damaged in a storm in 2017. I think our Santa Monica people might remember that storm. We had to close everything. There was flooding. It was crazy. That same storm damaged the pier out there. So when that pier is fixed, keep an eye on our website, and you can get out to Santa Barbara and visit. All right, now we're going to come a little closer to shore. This is the closest island to the mainland, about 19 miles offshore. It's Anacapa Island. Now the word Anacapa comes from a Chumash word that means mirage or illusion. And that is because this island is actually 3 separate islets, middle, east, and west Anacapa. And during different weather and fog, it can appear to change shape or size or move in the different weather. The island itself with the 3 islets is about 5 miles long, but the landmass is only about 1 square mile. So this is also a very small island. And you can visit eastern Anacapa Island if you go there. Heading out to eastern Anacapa, you're going to see this iconic symbol of Channel Islands, which is called Arch Rock. This rock stands about 40 feet high. And you'll see arches like this, as well as sea caves and towering sea cliffs on Anacapa, because it is a volcanic rock that is eroded by wind and water. Now, once you make it up the almost 150 stairs up to the top of Anacapa, you can explore the 2-mile trail system on Anacapa. And this picture is in the springtime, because it's very green out there, and you see the yellow flowers. That's the giant coreopsis forest. And you'll see those little white dots. Those are all western gulls. This is a western gull rookery. So if you really like western gulls and you want to walk through the middle of a rookery and get dive bombed, go, actually right about now is when they're having their chicks. So if you want to see that or experience that. And springtime is a great time to go out and see the bloom of the coreopsis out on the island.
Bethany, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
If you go back to the last slide, you might want to mention what's in the background.
Yeah, the lighthouse.
Actually beyond the lighthouse.
Oh, the mainland. Is that what you're?
It looks like Samo to me.
Yeah, that would be pointing directly at the Santa Monica Mountains. You are correct. So yeah, the islands point straight at and I guess it is, if you go back, I guess it's all kind of the same piece of land, the Santa Monica Mountains and out into the ocean, the islands. All right. The Channel Islands are vital habitat for nesting for seabirds in California. 99% of the seabirds and shorebirds in California nest on the Channel Islands. This is a California brown pelican here. They nest on Anacapa as well. So it's a great place to go out and explore the sea and shorebirds. All right, now we're gonna paddle 5 miles to the west and we're gonna come upon the largest island in California, and that's Santa Cruz Island. Santa Cruz Island is 96 square miles large. And it is very diverse habitat as well of plants and animals. It's divided by 2 mountain ranges that run east-west along the island with a large central valley, and which is actually a fault system that runs right through the middle of the island. The highest point on the Channel Islands is on Santa Cruz Island. It's Mount Diablo, and it's just over 2,400 feet tall. It's on Nature Conservancy land. 76% of Santa Cruz Island is owned by the Nature Conservancy, and the other 24% is National Park Service land. So if you wanted to go ashore on Nature Conservancy land, you'd have to get a permit. There are 77 miles of coastline on Santa Cruz Island. They consist of tide pools, rocky beaches, and sea caves. It's a great place to go kayaking through sea caves. What you're looking at here is Painted Cave. This is one of the largest sea caves in the world. And Island Packers does take trips out, and it's so big they can take their boat right into that opening there. If you want to explore some of the animals on the islands, they do have some very unique animals. These islands have never been connected to the mainland, and so that has created a lot of unique endemic species, so plants and animals that only live on the Channel Islands and nowhere else in the world. Some of those, the most famous is our island fox in the top left there, that evolved from the gray fox on the mainland. And they are about the size of a house cat, so they're smaller than the gray fox. The top right is the island scrub jay, and that evolved from the mainland scrub jay. And that animal only lives on Santa Cruz Island and nowhere else in the world. And the bird actually got larger than the mainland species. The bottom left is the really cute, but kind of stinky when I was out there. And if I would sleep with my window open, many times I would be awoken by the smell of this guy, the island spotted skunk. Now these guys aren't much different in size than their mainland counterparts. So that tells scientists that they haven't been out there quite as long as the other species. And then bottom right is the island deer mouse. And that they actually grew to be larger than their mainland counterparts as well. Now, starting your visit on Santa Cruz Island, you're going to start in one of 2 places, Scorpion Anchorage, which is pictured here. However, Scorpion is closed at the moment. They are putting a new pier in. The pier will be much larger and more historically accurate. So when you get out there next, it will be looking a little bit different than this. The pier will be kind of more in the middle of that cove there. And the other option is Prisoners Harbor. which is where the boat concessionaire, since Scorpion's been closed, they've been taking prisoner harbor trips. And that's more in the middle of the island than this one. This is more on the eastern end. All right, now we're gonna paddle a little bit more northwest of Santa Cruz to the second largest island in California. Santa Rosa Island is about 83 square miles large. Now this island has a relatively low profile, but it does have a central mountain range that rises over 1,500 feet tall. And it has coastlines that vary from sea cliffs and tide pools to broad sandy beaches on Santa Rosa Island. So if you like the sandy beaches, head over to this island. And it also is home to one of the rarest pines in the nation. What you're seeing here is the Santa Rosa Island Torrey pine. And these pines can only be found on Santa Rosa Island and at a nature preserve down by La Jolla, California. Hiking is a wonderful opportunity on Santa Rosa Island. There are canyons to hike through, meadows, and a former ranch lands. And Lobo Canyon is one of the most popular trails if you're camping to go out onto Lobo Canyon. And that's because it looks like this. It's very beautiful. It's got these geological sculptures of siltstone and sandstone. This has been created by wind erosion over the years. And you can tell from this picture how windy it gets out on Santa Rosa Island. All the trees are pushed in one direction. The wind and the weather does make it a little bit more challenging to get out to Santa Rosa Island. So you'll see there are fewer trips to Santa Rosa and San Miguel Islands because of the wind. Speaking of San Miguel, the king of wind and pinnipeds, this island is the westernmost island, and it does get hit with that weather from the North Pacific. So it is a very harsh but profoundly beautiful environment. This island is almost 15 square miles large, and it's primarily a plateau that stands about 500 feet in elevation. San Miguel is very important habitat for pinnipeds. It has 27 miles of isolated coastline. So those elephant seals that you see there, the California sea lions, harbor seals, northern fur seals, these pinnipeds need this shoreline to come ashore and breed and molt and raise their pups. So if you do camp out on San Miguel Island, I would highly recommend taking the ranger guided hike. It's about a 16-mile round trip hike, but you get to go out to Point Bennett where you'll see one of the most spectacular wildlife displays ever. All right, now that we have visited our islands, we're going to talk about some of the recreational opportunities out on the islands. First, you have to get out to the island. So this does take some planning. You can only get to the islands by boat or plane. And our concessionaire is Island Packers that you see here. So you do need to contact them to get your boat trips. Camping on the island can offer you an opportunity to fully immerse yourself in the island environment and really understand how isolated it is out there if you camp. Just walking a little bit away from the campground and you'll feel like you have the island to yourself. There is camping on all 5 islands year round in established campgrounds. And there's backcountry camping at Del Norte campsite on Santa Cruz Island. And between August and December, there's backcountry beach camping available on Santa Rosa Island. All of these camping opportunities require a reservation on recreation.gov. So go to www.recreation.gov to make those reservations. When you're doing that, you want to make sure that you are getting your boat tickets at the same time. Oftentimes boats will fill up faster than the camping reservations, and you need to make sure that you have a boat going out the day you're going out, the start of your reservation, and the last day of your reservation coming in. You don't want to take a boat out there and then not have camping reservations for the next day because there's nowhere for you to stay. You would have to come back on the boat that day. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go back and talk a little bit more about camping. When you're out there, you do have to keep your food and anything scented, like your trash or sunscreen. All of that attracts those foxes and ravens, and both of them are pretty smart. The ravens are so smart, they know how to unzip your bags. And the foxes, if you don't zip your tent to the top, they can nose their way in there and get in your tent. So there are fox boxes, same thing as bear box. You can see one there, a small one. You can store anything scented in there if you're not using it at the time. Water is also available on Scorpion, Anchorage, and at Water Canyon on Santa Rosa. Any other campground, you have to bring your own water. So crossing the Santa Barbara Channel offers opportunities to see the marine life of the park. This can include most often dolphins. You'll see common dolphins. You'll see orcas, gray whales, humpback whales, and even the largest animal on Earth, the blue whale. And then once you get closer to shore, seeing those pinnipeds like the California sea lions or harbor seals is a common sight. When you're on land, you want to find those terrestrial animals that are so special on the islands. Island foxes were almost extinct less than 2 decades ago, but now they are recovering due to a partnership between the Park Service and many other partners that worked hard to restore this population. I just got the numbers from 2019. Numbers were about 2,900 foxes on Santa Cruz Island, 2,400 foxes on Santa Rosa Island, and 450 on San Miguel Island. So they're doing pretty well. Hiking is also a wonderful recreational opportunity. The islands have different trails. Some of them are more maintained than others. Some of them have better signage than others. So before you go, make sure that you plan and you are prepared. Have a map, know where you're going to go, wear the proper clothing, have snacks, water, and sunscreen, and a hat because it gets very hot on top of the islands. There is very little shade. We don't have a lot of those big trees, as you can see here. If you'd like to see the other half of the park and cool off a bit, getting in the water is a wonderful thing to do. Snorkeling or diving or swimming. I recommend getting close to those kelp forests to see the marine life. The kelp forest protects over 1,000 species of plants and animals. Most often, an easy one to see is the Garibaldi, which is our state marine fish, and that's a bright orange fish. Sheephead is another common sight, as well as our kelp bass, and sometimes I saw some sea stars out there. If you go a little deeper and you dive down, you'll get to see some of those other critters that stay a little bit deeper in the water, like the spiny lobster and sea urchins and sea cucumbers. If you'd rather not get wet and stay on top of the water, kayaking is a wonderful opportunity. If you are an experienced ocean kayaker, you can bring your own kayak or rent a kayak and arrange with island packers to bring that kayak out for you. If you are not experienced, we don't recommend that you kayak on your own, but there is our concessionaire. It's called Channel Islands Adventure Company. It's also known as Santa Barbara Adventure Company. That company, you can go with a trained guide. They'll have all the equipment you need, and they know everything that they need to know to keep you safe. So they'll know what caves are safe to go in, and they'll guide you all along the way. So we recommend you make a reservation with them. And lastly, sailing or private boating around the Channel Islands is a wonderful way to experience the park. Private boaters can use any of the docks and piers on the National Park Service land, but they must anchor offshore. And to come ashore, like I said earlier, on the Nature Conservancy land, you do need a permit, so you'd need to contact the Nature Conservancy ahead of time for that. And then San Miguel Island, you would need to contact us ahead of time if you'd like to go ashore there. San Miguel is actually owned by the Navy, and they did do some bombing on there a long time ago, so it's they want to make sure everyone's safe. So there's only a small area on San Miguel you can walk around on your own. Otherwise, you have to be with a ranger. All right, so we have seen that the Channel Islands has an array of recreational opportunities. You can swim and snorkel out at Santa Barbara, explore the Coreopsis on Anacapa, sea kayak at Santa Cruz, walk through the Torrey Pines on Santa Rosa, and see thousands of pinnipeds on San Miguel. So I do recommend that you try to get out there, experience your park that is an isolated island environment only miles away from 18 million people. So it's a nice break from the craziness we have on the mainland sometimes. All right, so I would love to open it up for any questions that you may have.
Say, Bethany,
Yeah.
have they finished the work on the landing in Anacapa Island?
I believe that they have one more day of work for that. And then it should be done. And I think that might be happening this coming month.
Hey, Bethany, we've got a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
One question is, do all the pinniped species coexist peacefully on the beaches, as it looks like in your picture?
Yeah, that does kind of show an ideal environment, right? The sea lions on top of the elephant seals. Obviously, the elephant seals, some of them don't mind that. But I do know that the elephant seals are very territorial, so the males will fight for their territory, and you can Google some of those fights online and see what that looks like. So I would say, like, because even the sea lions, like, they come up on our dock in Ventura, and they all lay together, but they also fight too when someone gets too close that they don't like. I think they're just like us. They like some, they don't like the others.
A couple of other questions. Are those eucalyptus trees in the campground pictures?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, those are eucalyptus trees. That is because the ranchers planted them, and some of them are considered historic. So they are not removing them because of that. But they do go in and remove the ones that kind of go rogue, the wild ones. So if they kind of try to escape, they do take those down. And they also regularly prune those trees because they do know that people camp underneath them. So they try to make sure that they're safe.
Are there any oak trees on the islands?
Yeah, there are island oaks. There's several different types of oaks out on the islands. On eastern Santa Cruz, you're going to see less of that than, like, on the Nature Conservancy side. I've seen more of those oaks because they've had a little bit longer to recover from the ranching. If you go out to Prisoners Harbor, and Island Packers is offering a hike over to Pelican Bay, that's on Nature Conservancy land. And it's a beautiful hike, and I saw more oaks and native plants on that hike than I see kind of on the eastern end at Scorpion Anchorage.
Cool. Just a couple of more questions from the chat. Where did the Chumash people come from who first arrived on the islands before they went to the mainland?
Okay, that's a good question. The Chumash ancestors, we don't really know where they came from. There are theories. The oldest human remains in North America were found on Santa Rosa Island, and they were dated to about 13,000 years ago. So we know that people have been using these islands for that long. And one of the theories of how they got there was the kelp highway theory. Has anyone heard of that before? So basically, they followed the kelp forests along the coast from Asia all the way down to California. So they took boats and followed this kelp forest. So that's the theory. So that's one theory, as, like, people getting out there. They, did have some type of boats, we know, obviously, because they got out to the islands. And then eventually the Chumash people created their tamols, the redwood plank canoes that they used to get out to the islands. And the Chumash people today, the tribal partners we work with, they still do paddle a tamol out to Santa Cruz Island once a year in September. And then the whole island, there's Scorpion Anchorage is put on hold, and they go, all their friends and family go out and they celebrate for the whole weekend out there.
Cool. A few more questions have popped up. Let's see here. What species of snakes are found on the island?
Yeah, there are 2 species, the island gopher snake on Santa Cruz and the yellow belly racer. And I don't know, I know that those are both on Santa Cruz. I don't, I'd have to look up if they're on Santa Rosa or San Miguel. I don't think they're on Anacapa.
Okay. Is COVID-19 affecting island packers?
Yeah, Island Packers is currently not running out to the islands. That may be changing soon. You'd have to check their website or call them. They do have people working in the office to find out if they have any knowledge on what, if they're starting out up soon. But yeah, they have been closed for like the last 2 months.
And do they, as I've heard it, they do multiple islands in one day. Is that correct?
So they used to not do that when Scorpion Anchorage was open, because most of the visitors went to Scorpion Anchorage for the day trips or camping. But when Scorpion closed, they kind of changed up what they were doing, and they're offering trips to Prisoners Harbor, but there's not quite as much to explore at Prisoners Harbor. So sometimes what they're doing is, like, you can go to Prisoners Harbor for half the day, and then they'll take you to Painted Cave for half the day, or they'll take you to Prisoners for half a day, and then they'll go over to Anacapa for half the day. So there, you'd have to check their website. They have multi-island trips at the moment anyway, I think is what they did because of Scorpion. So when Scorpion opens back up, I'm not sure if they'll continue that or not.
So just to follow up on that, so I guess I was wondering if you were to go to one island for a day or two camping, would Island Packers then take you to another island from there, or would you have to come back to the mainland first?
Most likely you're going to have to come back to the mainland, because they don't do those trips like from island to island. It's possible if you're out on Santa Rosa Island, they might have a trip out to Santa Rosa to pick up campers, and then they might be stopping at Santa Cruz on their way back, so that they could maybe shuttle you there. But again, I don't think it happens very often. If that's something you'd have to talk to Island Packers about.
Got more questions coming in. Would it be somewhat easy for a day trip to Santa Cruz to go birding for the Island J?
Yeah, I recommend it right now. Like I said, if they start up again, they'll be going to Prisoners Harbor. And I don't know if they're going to be doing that guided hike, but they might be hiking along with people and allowing you to go on that hike to Pelican. If they do that, I recommend going on that hike, because I think that's where you're most likely going to see the J is along that hike. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when I was out there, a lot of people would come out just looking for that bird, and sometimes they'd see it, sometimes they wouldn't. But I was out there a lot, and I saw it a lot. It's pretty common to see it, I think.
Okay. And you said for Anacapa Island, it's just the East Island?
Yeah.
Is there access to the West and Middle?
There's not for the public. I think there was one place, I think it was on Middle Anacapa, that they did used to do trips to, because there were tide pools there, but they don't anymore. And I did hear rumors that they might start going there again, but I don't know. As far as I know right now, it's just East Anacapa that you have access. If that changes, you would see that on Island Packer's schedule.
Okay. This is an interesting question. You've brought up the name Prisoner Harbor a few times.
Mm-hmm.
How did it get its name?
Good question. When Mexico owned California and they owned those islands, they had some prisoners that they wanted to get rid of. They were on a boat and they took them to San Diego and they didn't want them. So they came up to Santa Barbara and they didn't want them. So I think that some of the mission there, I think, took some of them from the boat there. But then the worst ones, they got permission from the governor at that time to take them out to Santa Cruz, and they dropped them off at Prisoners Harbor with supplies. Now, the way the story goes is that a fire happened sometime later, and they made rafts and they went off into the channel, and then one story says they made it back to the mainland and they were integrated back into society, and the other one says they didn't. So we don't really know what exactly happened, but there are some stories about that. We have on our website the kind of the different story options on there. But yeah, that's the story. They dropped some prisoners off out there at Prisoners Harbor.
Cool. Here's one that is from Cabrillo, connecting the Cabrillo folks. What do we know about the expedition's time on the island and Cabrillo's death and burial?
You guys, Cabrillo folks would probably know more about the expedition times, and I actually haven't spent a lot of time studying the Cabrillo story. We do know that he, explored, and it is thought that he possibly, sorry, my cat's yelling at me. It's thought that he possibly is buried on San Miguel Island, but we don't know that for sure. They said he may have died and been buried out there. But you can visit the Cabrillo Monument if you get out to San Miguel Island. You'd have to hike up Night Ever Canyon, but yeah, you can visit. There's like a stone cross up there that's the Cabrillo Monument. So I would check our website for more of the details and dates on that information.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just Cat wants input too.
Yes, yeah.
I just a couple of more things. Mel said, I was told the 4 islands are one large island called Santa Rosa.
Yeah, Mel is correct. During the last ice age, about 13,000 years ago, the 4 northern islands were all connected as one large island, and that was called Santa Rosa. And so at that time, it was closer to the shore, to the mainland, because of the water level being lower, and only about 5 miles from the mainland. And that's when the theory is that the Columbian mammoths swam over to the islands, and then over time evolved and adapted and became the pygmy mammoths that were on the islands. So yeah, they are correct.
Cool. And as a ranger, do you live there part-time or stay on the mainland and boat out daily?
That's funny. One of the most common questions that I got when I was a park guide out on the island was, do you live here? It was like every single day I get that question. And so the way it works is that no one lives permanently on the islands, but only part-time. So it's called a tour of duty. We'll go out and we'll spend 10 days on the island, and then we'll have 6 days off the island, and we'll go back and spend 10 days. Sorry, let me just let her out. She's not having it. So yeah, no one lives permanently out there. There is park housing at Scorpion Anchorage, and there's a cabin at Del Norte, and then there's housing at Santa Rosa. So that's how it works. Right now, I am a park guide in the visitor center, so I don't go out to the islands. I would only go out for day trips, or if they needed me as a backup out there on the island, I would go out to help.
Was there ranching on all the islands?
Yeah, okay. I would say I don't know about Santa Barbara, but there was ranching on Santa Cruz, sheep ranching, and then more cattle ranching on Santa Rosa. And yes, they did ranch on San Miguel as well. And Anacapa, surprisingly, there's no water on Anacapa, but I have read stories about sheep on West Anacapa, and the way they would get their water is just from the dewdrops from the fog in the morning. So there were, sheep even on Anacapa Island as well. So yes, pretty much, but I don't know about Santa Barbara. I'd have to check on that.
And Bethany,
And I think that's all the questions in the chat box. If I miss somebody, please feel free to speak up. Anybody else have any questions for Bethany?
well, I was just going to ask. I know they found they've excavated the skeletons of pygmy mammoths out on the those 4 northern islands, but have you ever found the skeletons of the original Columbian mammoths out there?
I believe they have found, I don't know if they found a whole one, but I think they have found parts of them, and they keep all of those collections in the Santa Barbara Natural History Museum. And I think that they have kind of arranged this. So they do know, that's how we know that they were Columbian mammoths, because we have evidence of that. But yeah, going to that museum and exploring their, all of the fossils that they have there is pretty exciting. So yeah, I think they have found some, but I don't think they have a pretty good full pygmy mammoth, which we have a replica of in our visitor center in Ventura, if you want to make your way over there and see that.
And when do they think the Columbian mammoths first migrated out to those islands? Do they have any idea, how many years ago?
I think they think it was during that Ice Age period, when the islands were closer to the mainland, so it was only about 5 miles, because they think they swam over to the islands. So about 13,000-ish years ago.
I see one in the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
That 13,000 years ago then was when they say they found the first people. Is that related then to that first island? And was that island off of San Diego?
Well, no, the 13,000 years ago, we don't know if people and the mammoths coexisted at the same time on the islands. That's not clear. When the islands were down, so the islands actually originated from a piece of land down by San Diego, and then it started moving north after the Pacific plate hit the North American plate, and that's the piece of land that the islands and I believe Santa Monica Mountains, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, Tori, or Rosa, but I think that's the same piece of land. But the islands didn't start coming out of the water till, it was about 20 million years ago that land started moving. So it was a very slow process for that to move up, and now the land was being pushed up, and it's rotating clockwise as well. So the islands are still being pushed up and being rotated clockwise. But we don't know 13,000 years ago if people and mammoths were both on the island at the same time. That's not clear yet.
So I was just going to say, I saw 2 other questions in the chat box. One, if there are birding trips out to the island, and then what type of work do volunteers do for you guys?
Good questions. I don't think that there's any specific guided birding tours, unless you found a separate group that was going out together, like a birding group. So that might be possible. But there's nothing that the Park Service offers that's just birding. And volunteering, there is a ton of volunteering opportunities with the park. You can volunteer on the mainland in our visitor center. You can volunteer with our education department, or you can be a part of any of the resources, so natural resources, cultural resources, they all have volunteers. And then there is the Channel Islands Naturalist Corps. So this is separate from what Lay and them do is the VIP program, which that's all our volunteers on the mainland and everything. the Channel Islands Naturalist Corps, excuse me. This is a group of people that go out on whale watching trips, and they go out to the islands and they lead tours out on the island, just like a park ranger like I would do out there. And sometimes they even stay like weekends, over a whole weekend, and help the rangers out there. So that's an option too. They take new volunteers for that like every 2 years, I believe. And I think that this coming year, they will be taking new volunteers. Check on our website, just Google Channel Islands National Park volunteers, and you'll see the application for that, and also information about how to apply for the Naturalist Corps. So you could go ahead and put in your application now, and they'll start choosing people. You'll have to go through an interview and everything, but they'll do that in the fall, I think, for next year for the Naturalist Corps. So it's a great way to, be able to go out there, spend some time out on the islands or in the channel on whale watches, and get to share this beautiful place with the public.
Another question, is the bald eagle program done on all the islands?
I don't know what if they're doing anything further with the bald eagles. The bald eagles have come back. They are doing very well. I'm sure that they're monitoring their population levels. But yes, there are bald eagles on Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa, even like Catalina. I know that they watch them there as well. So Catalina is considered one of the Channel Islands, just not part of the park. So yeah, bald eagles, I don't have their current numbers, but they were doing pretty well, the last numbers that I had.
Cool, I see one more. The geology of the islands. What is the geology of the islands?
Geology, yeah, so that's a long, a lot of information, and I don't have all of that information. We have a lot of information on our website, but kind of like the quick of it is what I mentioned before, where 20 million years ago, the Pacific plate ran into the North American plate, and it started pushing up, and that broke off a piece of land down by San Diego, and that land started moving north and being rotated clockwise. And during this time, it was underwater in the ocean, and there were cracks in the bottom, and so lava was flowing up from those cracks. Or sorry, lava's not the right term, but you guys know what I mean. So that created that volcanic rock, which we see on the islands there in Anacapa and Santa Cruz. There's also the sedimentary rock as well. So then those islands kept being pushed up and up and up until they came above the water. And I don't know how, I'd have to look again at like how long ago that was that they got pushed out of, we're starting to be above the sea level. But that's kind of the quick and dirty of like how it moved and where the land came from. But there's a ton of information on our website about that.
So Bethany, you probably covered this before maybe, but I assume there's only one it's a boat trip out with the Packer organization in the morning, and then one returning at night in the evening. So how many hours would that give you to hike if you were just doing a one-day trip?
Yeah, usually they either have 8 o'clock in the morning boats or 9 o'clock boats. Sometimes during the summer they have more. They'll have 10 o'clock, and then a lot of times they also have like a 2 o'clock boat, or sorry, a noon boat or 2 o'clock boat, so an afternoon boat. So depending on how much time you want to spend, if you it usually takes about an hour to get out to Santa Cruz or Anacapa. If you're going to Santa Rosa, it's going to take more like 2.5 to 3 hours. If you're going to San Miguel, you're looking more like 4 hours to get out there. So it takes a lot longer to get out to those further islands. So when you're planning your trip, take that time into consideration. That's how long it takes. And usually they leave the island, they leave Santa Cruz around 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. In the afternoon. So you're going to get back around 4 or 5 or 6 in the evening. If you're coming from Santa Rosa, they're probably going to leave the island sooner, more like 3:30, and San Miguel would be even sooner than that because of that time it takes to get out there. So that's, you know, a lot of people out on Santa Cruz, another common question I would get was, can I leave on an earlier boat? Because some people would get bored out there when they realized all there was to do was hike and, you know, swim or snorkel or kayak, you know, they'd get bored. So, but yeah, you want to take that into consideration. How much time do you want to spend? There's no entertainment out there. You know, you can go on a hike, swim, snorkel, kayak. So yeah, depending on the island, when you're making a reservation, just ask the person at Island Packers that question: how long am I going to have on the islands? And they'll let you know. Usually, if it's a trip going out to Santa Cruz or Santa Rosa, I know we're not going to be doing this soon, but maybe later they're going to be offering like those guided hikes again. And they usually, you know, go on about an hour or so guided hike that they offer from a naturalist, a volunteer, or a ranger.
Okay, thanks a lot.
And just real quickly, I think Carrie mentioned that there was Island Packers has a pelagic tours, or have pelagic tours, and pelagic refers to ocean birds. But
Right.
Carrie, did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, they do. The schedule's been kind of whack this year for obvious reasons, but they typically do 2 or 3 big trips in the spring and in the fall. And they'll take you out around behind the islands to find those nice pelagic birds that you don't see anywhere else. It's pretty cool. It's not cheap, but it's a good thing.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Carrie. All right, any more questions? Going once?
Bethany, I just thought of one. When did the Spaniards first come to those islands?
Okay, the Spaniards. Oh, I'd have to look back. The Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, I think it was the first. And I don't remember the dates. I'd have to go back and look at my dates on that. But I mean, they definitely did visit, and Santa Cruz Island is named because they visited and one of the priests left his staff on the island and it had a gold cross on the top, and they assumed that the Chumash wouldn't bring it back to them, but the next day they did. And so the priest named the island the Island of the Holy Cross on Santa Cruz Island. So I'm sorry, I don't have those exact dates and I don't want to give you incorrect, but it looks like Julian wrote 1542 was that the first, possibly the first expedition.
Okay, and Bethany, any idea of what, I've always wondered, you know, when I would point out Santa Barbara Island to people on a clear day, they're like, oh, is it right next to Santa Barbara? And I'm like, well, no, Santa Barbara, and I point to the north. Mm-hmm. Any idea of why the island got named Santa Barbara, but it's like it's far from the city of Santa Barbara?
I don't have any idea. No, I haven't looked at why Santa Barbara was named Santa Barbara. But that's something good that we can all look up and find out. But yeah, if you're interested, I can, if you put if you email us, actually, I can try to find that information for you. If you have any other questions that you guys think of, email at us at, let me just type it in here. And then that would give me the opportunity to look up some of that information or check with my coworkers about some of those details.
And for anybody who's not on the chat, she wrote CHIS, which stands for Channel Islands. So the email is CHIS_information@nps.gov for nationalparkservice.gov. So CHIS_information@nps.gov. And one last real quick question. What other birds are on the islands besides the jays and the western gulls?
Yeah, there are a lot of birds that use the islands, the seabirds, and then, you know, the California brown pelicans, oyster catchers. What else we have? Cassin's auklets. Other ones. I don't know all of them or even close to that, but there's also birds that use the islands when they're migrating as well. So you only see them part of the year. Let's see, I've seen flycatchers out there, peregrine falcons, which we do have webcams on some of the peregrine falcon nests. Of course, there's the bald eagles. What else have I seen? That's all that comes to mind now, but check our website. We do have, I think, a bird list available on our website, or send me an email and I'll get that bird list to you. And that has like hundreds of birds on it.
Great. Out of respect for people's time, if they want to leave, they can. And I want to thank Bethany for a great presentation. We did have one last question that came in, and that was, let me scroll back up. Lots of thank yous. What is the most memorable experience on the islands? Or what is your most memorable experience on the islands?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I think the sunsets. I would lead a sunset hike on Friday nights when I was a park guide out there, and we would go up to Cavern Point, and I think that is the most memorable. There's nothing like a sunset off the Channel Islands. It's just quite astounding. So definitely, I think sunsets for sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bethany. It was so great to see your smiling face again and join us to share all that wonderful information. I've only been to Anacapa that one time in the 5 years I've been down here. So I now am like, oh, I've got to get out to see all these other islands and experience it. So thank you so much. And lots of people typing in chats. Awesome job. Thank you. They've learned a lot. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you to everyone for having me. It was my pleasure. And I'm so happy to see some familiar faces that I've been missing. I hope you all are very safe and staying healthy. And when you can, get over there and give Channel Islands a visit. Thank you.
Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks a lot, Bethany.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.